Absolutely, and it raises our question of the day, Guy, which is how much more juice is in the AI trade? Of course, a lot of those Magnificent Seven players are very much in this, NVIDIA being an important one. Joining us now to help answer this question is Bloomberg's Denitsa Tsekova and Mandeep Singh of Bloomberg Intelligence. So Mandeep, just to begin with you, as you are one of our great analysts on NVIDIA specifically, what does it have to put up today to justify the rally we have seen?
Well, so when you look at the data center numbers, you've seen, almost doubling of the data center revenue sequentially. And, even next year, it's expected to grow almost 50%. So you have to ask yourself, how is the end market growing? And we know semiconductor end market is growing at a healthy, on the data center side, it's growing, about mid to high teens, but NVIDIA is obviously growing 3 times that growth rate. So the questions remain around data center growth and how much runway it has, but clearly, with any hardware company, it's a function of unit growth and ASP growth. And for NVIDIA, you are going to see very strong ASP growth because they're making more powerful chips. Customers are willing to pay up higher prices, and that's where you see, even if the unit growth kind of tapers, the ASP growth is expected to remain strong.
But Denitsa, doesn't the market already know that? The market's a discounting mechanism. It looks forward. It knows that these numbers are going to be incredible for a while. How much of that's already in the price?
Yeah, you can argue that some of this is already in the price, but even going into those third quarter earnings, we should remember that forecasters were quite pessimistic. They were expecting a 1% drop in earnings per share for the S&P 500, and we actually saw a 4% increase. And a big part of where that increase is coming from is, of course, the Magnificent Seven. So we saw 3 quarters of negative earnings that ended in this third quarter. And if you exclude the Magnificent Seven, this is actually not the case. So the end of the earnings recession is because of the strong growth we've seen. Of course, the other part of it, those stocks are priced for perfection. This is something we've talked again and again. Yep. And today we're seeing some of that pullback in expectations of how much excitement can there be. Some of that is, of course, valuations have fallen slightly. For example, the Nasdaq is 24 times projected earnings, and at one point it was 27, 28. But some of those big mega caps are hovering around 30 times more, 28 times more. So there has been a slight decrease from the top, but of course there are still priced for pretty much perfect earnings results.
Well, and Denitsa, when we think about that pricing and just, as you say, where valuations are, how much of the ability for these trades to continue running is predicated on the idea that we're going to continue to see real yields coming down?
You can see that definitely there has been a new wave of optimism in the last few weeks. We have seen strong inflows. If we look at QQQ, like just a few weeks ago, we were in bear market territory, and then we reached a 22-month high. And obviously, there has been a lot of optimism about soft landing. Yields have been moving higher quite fast. We have been moving lower quite fast. So this has definitely added more fuel to the rally, and there have been more than $2 trillion in just a matter of weeks added to the Nasdaq. So this is kind of incredible growth. Of course, this again leaves us back to losing financial conditions, higher violations. So a few times this year we've seen really sharp increase and strong sentiment towards tech stocks, only to see a pullback a couple of weeks back. So it's the question of how long will last. Maybe is all on NVIDIA today.
It's all on NVIDIA, and in some ways NVIDIA has become a macro story. If NVIDIA were to stumble, that would ripple through very quickly through the financial markets, potentially even into the real economy. Mandeep, what would a stumble from NVIDIA look like?
Well, so it does have exposure to, some consumer-facing segments, and we know, whether it's PCs or smartphones or gaming, those markets haven't really bottomed. And look, the pure play stocks would bounce much earlier than the last cut, but at the same time, when you look at the growth numbers for NVIDIA, right now the entire thing is being carried by the data center side, and that's where, there are other pockets like automotive and gaming where you want to see strength when it comes to the other segments for NVIDIA.
So obviously a lot of attention will be paid to NVIDIA after the bell today, but Mandeep, even more attention, arguably, at least in the last couple of days, has been paid to another AI story. OpenAI, the ouster of Sam Altman, who has gone over to Microsoft. And we actually just got some news out from Microsoft's CTO, Kevin Scott. He posted on X, I'm going to read it to you. To my partners at OpenAI, we have seen your petition. This is, of course, the petition to have the board resign. Otherwise, they all threatened to go to Microsoft, and appreciate your desire potentially to join Sam Altman at Microsoft's new AI research lab. Know that if needed, you have a role at Microsoft that matches your compensation and advances our collective mission. Mandeep, is Microsoft endorsing a mass exodus from a company that it has billions of dollars invested in?
I mean, the way I look at it is they already have a massive investment in OpenAI. They have, in fact, now built their own large language model and standardized everything around OpenAI. And for them, if OpenAI falls apart and the talent goes everywhere else, that's definitely a loss. So what they're trying to do is to salvage the situation. But I look at it this way. They just bought, Activision, a $70 billion acquisition. They can't really afford to have another big acquisition. Yes, they can bring the talent, but there are cultural issues. And no one exactly knows what transpired in terms of, Sam Altman being let go suddenly, and there could be some safety issues related to AI, some IP issues. So I would be surprised if they kind of bring everyone over at Microsoft.
Just kind of highlights the volatility and the kind of the early stages we're at in some ways of this process of building the AI economy. Denitsa, how should I think about these stocks? What are they? Are they growth stocks? Are they defensive stocks? We were just talking about Ferrari being a defensive stock, which seems in so many ways to be a weird thing, but maybe it is. Are these big tech stocks, what are they?
Yeah, we have definitely seen people fleeing to them for both of those reasons, for their strong balance sheets and then being defensive stock in case of a recession. So that I guess that's a long debate we can go on, but I think it's important to see how sensitive the market has been, and every small announcement about cloud computing can pretty much change the whole reaction to our earnings report. We saw the reaction to Alphabet, we saw the reaction to Microsoft, which actually reported a lift in revenue, and it's a record high and close to $3 trillion evaluation. So it's those little small parts that can totally change an earnings report that I think are changing the perspective on whether this is a defensive stock, for example.
Yeah, it increasingly feels like bad news is good news. Bad news for everybody else is good news for this sector. It's going to be interesting to watch whether or not NVIDIA can deliver on that. Denitsa, thank you very much indeed. Denitsa Tsekova and Mandeep Singh of Bloomberg Intelligence. Thank you very much indeed, guys.